Hello everyone, it's Norton York. I am chair and founder of RSL Awards, and I am thrilled and delighted today to be online with the wonderful songwriter, producer, guitarist and all-round fabulous musician, Fraser T. Smith. Hi Fraser.
Hi Norton, how are you doing?
So, as you know, Rock School is always focused on recognising excellence, and we do that for musicians and business people who have had global careers or global impact in their careers, and often people who have in some time in their life attended some form of formal pop music or music business course that we might have been involved with. And I can think of no one finer to be one of the first recipients of our fellowship than Fraser. He around 30 years ago, Fraser came as a young guitarist to study with me on a course that I ran about 4 miles away here in West London. And in fact, that was one of the very first ever pop music courses where young guitarists, bass players and drummers could come and study the instrument and the music that they loved. After the course, Fraser went on to establish a successful career as a session player, performing with all sorts of artists, notably Rick Wakeman in the early days. He then moved on to songwriting and producing, especially working with exciting and cutting-edge new artists, from Craig David in his early days, and then more recently with Kano, with Stormzy and Dave, as well as having an amazing collaborative career as a producer and songwriter with artists as diverse and successful as Adele and Britney Spears, James Morrison and Tinchy Stryder. Fraser's won many awards, from Brit Awards to Ivor Novellos and Grammys. But for me, when I was doing my research, it seemed that the most telling accolade was what some of Fraser's collaborators from the grime community had to say about him, which is that he simply helps them become the best artist that they could ever be. And for us as educators and students, it seems to me that there can be no better role model than someone who can help produce new music through imagination, innovation and collaboration. Just one example of that is Fraser's recent solo album, where he poses 12 questions and collaborates with established and emerging musical talent, as well as drawing support and involvement from actors and political activists. Like all artists, he invites us to explore the key ideas about life with subtlety, exuberance and flair. So it is absolutely our honour at RSL to be able to say that way back when, early in Fraser's musical journey, we played a small part in helping him find his way. In fact, the course that Fraser did was the course which inspired the creation of RSL Awards as well. So for his huge achievements in music performance, in songwriting and production, it is my absolute thrill and honour today to award Fraser our highest accolade, our fellowship, our FRSL Honours, for all of his wonderful music work. Congratulations, here it is.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh, brilliant. May I just ask you some questions and we'll just have a chat and tell some stories about the old days? Yeah.
Please.
So if you can remember back to sometime in the late 1980s, something prompted you in your life, which I don't know about, which to apply to come on the course at the old West London Institute, which is no longer an independent institution, our foundation course in music there. And I just wondered if you could share with us what prompted you to make that move, because it was quite unusual at that time, and what do you remember about it, and how did it help you get going in music afterwards, if it did?
I really did. I mean, I remember if I go right back to being at school and doing my A-levels and really falling in love with the guitar and knowing that I wanted to be a guitar player, but not really having the ability to take that any step further because I didn't read music at that point. So I was at this point where I felt that I was becoming quite an accomplished guitar player, even at the age of 16 or 17. But I wasn't too sure how you made that next step. And I knew there were some big courses in America, like the Guitar Institute and Berkeley, but that was really out of my realms in terms of, you know, financial commitment for my parents. So I did my A levels, which was English, French, and history, and spent most of the time in bands, and was rewarded for spending the time in the bands with a D and two E's. Now, a D and two E's A level at that point got me the great options of either going to Hull or Woolwich Polytechnic. Now, I thought, if I go to Woolwich Polytechnic to study business, which was the only course available to me, that seems closer to London than Hull. That's all I could think of. So I went to London and promptly joined a band, and didn't go to many of the lectures because I was always touring and always playing and doing late night gigs. And again, was rewarded by the academic authorities there by being thrown out after my first. So you can imagine at this point, my parents were thinking, this guy is on a road to nowhere. So in the meantime, I had seen somewhere, I can't remember if it was in Guitarist magazine or through the Guitar Institute, or that there was this course. And this was to me, your course that I eventually got accepted onto was this ray of light that I thought, you know, so I literally practiced and practiced and practiced and did the audition. And I did go back to see my dad. I said, look, I've got good news and bad news. And he said, what's the bad news? I said, well, the bad news is I've been thrown out of Woolwich Polytechnic. He said, well, that's really bad. What's the good news? I said, I've got a place on the course, West London Institute. It's a 2-year course. It's you don't have to pay anything, which was the thing that he was probably most excited about. I said, there's a grant for this, so I'm not going to ask you for any more money. I've got into it. It's the thing I really want to do. I won't let you down. And the rest, that was really the start of my musical apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I mean, being at the course, for me, having been doing A levels that I didn't want to do, a business course that I didn't want to do, and all the, you know, I was in bands. Well, what's my life going to turn out like? Being given this wonderful opportunity of meeting other musicians, such as Nathan Curran, who's gone on to do amazing things. So I still keep in contact with Dominic Greensmith from Reef, all of the Reef band that did so well there, and just like-minded musicians recording, playing, learning classical music, even the things which most people would think were boring. I just thought this is the most amazing thing, seeing Beethoven's sheet music, but then going and jamming out with the wonderful musicians there and playing, you know, with the instructors, but also with the other music, playing James Brown music and progressive music and rock and just being surrounded, and then recording and having the music that I came up with, actually having that recorded professionally and working with some of the musicians to play on my records, which actually was a bit of a sort of precursor to me being a producer, because I just love that recording process so much. So
yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, I owe huge to you, Norton, and to the course that you designed.
Oh, thank you. That's thrilling to hear, actually, and so wonderful given what it's led to. And I mean, were there specific people or things which you took away from the course that helped you get going once you'd finished the course to start working as well? Because it sounds like it was a big opening up for you.
It really was. I think the breadth of music that I encountered there was really important, because I think as a kid you can be into, as a guitar player, I was naturally drawn to kind of rock guitar, and I was in quite a narrow sort of window of what I was listening to, but being surrounded by keyboard players, by singers, by flautists, by violinists, and just learning how to communicate with musicians in a live sense, in a social sense, in a recording studio sense. I think that set me up for the diversity musically that I've had in my career.
Brilliant. So then let's talk a bit about producing music. Thank you for that. And how you go about working with young and emerging artists as a producer and a co-writer, because it's something that you've done a lot of and you've been hugely successful. I just wondered what your approach is when you're working with a new young artist.
I think for me, music is a great leveler. You know, I think that music crosses boundaries, whether it's age, color, background, social background, political background. I think that music is the great leveler, and I think that when you put music in between two people and you're both drawing from different influences, there's that common ground, and I think that that transcends all the age or cultural differences that I just mentioned. So for me, when I'm in the studio, I sort of feel ageless. So I think there is obviously a level where you're having fun on that level with the artist, but obviously I have more experience than a lot of the artists that come in, and I think that you try and be as wise, you try and steer artists as delicately and as sensitively and as kindly as you can. And I think that there is really a carved out process. It's more about really listening and being empathetic and understanding what the artist is looking for, but what they need and how you can help. That's really to be of service to the artist's goal, really.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. Yeah. No, brilliant. So if you were talking to a young Fraser who's just finished at Woolwich and is maybe starting out at West London Institute, or maybe just finished West London Institute, and you were going to advise them today, into the 21st century music business, are there any thoughts you have or advice that you can offer? Just because there's going to be lots of RSL students all over the country who are in that sort of position now.
I think obviously the landscape was very different 30 years ago to the landscape that is out there today, and I think that probably now getting your music out there is easier, but the challenges are, I would say, maintaining your focus. So I would say, if I had advice to young students that are in the education system and on one of your courses, I would say that really try and enjoy the lack of distraction if you can. Don't feel too tied to your phone. Spend some time, but literally put a stopwatch and say, I'm going to do an hour on social media, but use it in a way that's creative and actually see some incredible musicians playing, or some words of wisdom, some cultural kind of words that will help nurture you and your creativity. But I think just keeping things pure. I mean, really, a good song is a good song when you break it down, and I think that's the same for Stormzy as it is for Adele. Blinded by Your Grace is a great song regardless of the beat. But so is Set Fire to the Rain, and that's what joins great artists. I think at the end of the day, the songwriting is very simple, and I see a lot of young students worrying about the music industry and how they get the music heard. But I think at the end of the day, I've always maintained that if you're consistent and you really are authentic in the music that you craft, and it is a craft, and I think if you spend the time crafting your songwriting, your production, your musicianship, you don't really have to worry about self-promotion too much. It becomes really noticeable, and I think you can tell the people that have spent the time on the right things, and they're usually the people that have longevity in their careers.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, just thinking about some of the artists you've worked with more recently, like Stormzy and Dave, who have arguably created some of the most iconic statements in recent pop culture, really, particularly about their own sense of identity, and also British identity. And I just wondered what your thoughts are about how important for young artists expressing clearly their own identity in their music is. How important is identity in songwriting and production?
I think it's hugely important. I mean, two of my biggest, I would say, successes ever have been working with Dave and Stormzy, down to the fact that they've been able to really express on the biggest type of stages their thoughts. They've expressed, as you said, their cultural backgrounds and individuality, their political thoughts. I think to have been part of that wave has been such a huge blessing over the years. I think that it's vitally important because the stage can become can become somewhere that helps change, that helps open people's eyes, that helps facilitate a change in people's beliefs. And I think that when you have two artists as incredible as Dave and Stormzy, and so able to put their words into such a meaningful package, and then to deliver them in such an exciting way at events like the Brits and obviously on their records, then that, to me, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, it's what the art's about for me. Oh, so we have students from some of our colleges who submitted questions to you. So may I just run through 2 or 3 of them and give the students a shout out, because that will give them a thrill as well. Brilliant. These are all students and staff at Kidderminster College, which I don't think is that far away from your base, and they have about 1,000 students taking RSL awards across different music disciplines and media disciplines. So the first one is from Simon Henley from Bass Studios, which works with the Kidderminster College MAS record label. So Simon's asking, what are your views, Fraser, on working for free while starting out as a producer or an artist? Is it the best way to get a name for yourself? Asks Simon.
Hi, Simon. I mean, I've always had a quite a laid back approach to this, and I would say that I respect if someone wouldn't feel comfortable with this approach and would say, no, I think you need to, this is only my opinion, but it's worked for me. I put the music first, and I always ask what people's budgets are. I think that if the budget is 0, there's usually a way to say, well, look, let's play the long game. Don't pay me at the minute, but if you like what I'm doing, then let's work something out. I think obviously there's people going to try and take advantage of that, but I think that it's part of your intuition to work out who the good people are and who the people are that are trying to exploit you. There is an instinct for that maybe you have to develop through the series of kind of wins and losses, but it usually balances out over the course of a career or a year or 6 months. I would say that my approach really is to put the music first. I think that if you start bringing the commerce into it too soon, it can be just put a different slant on it. And I do tend to look at art and commerce as almost opposing forces that you have to try and balance. So personally, for me, I put the art first. And if you were to ask, did I work with a major label session last week with 2 platinum selling artists for free, the answer would be yes, in the trust that I put my trust in them that down the line. But at this point, I could say, well, before you come into the studio, it's going to be this amount. If you use the track, it's going to be this amount. But I just don't feel comfortable. So I would say that there is something within art that is more important than money. And I think that if you're able to put the financial side to the back of your thoughts, then it will pay dividends in what you create. That's not to say that you ever want to be exploited, and you should always be paid what you're worth. But I think that there is, certainly when you're young, I mean, I did many things for free to get myself on the map, and I feel that then when there was money to be paid, I got paid. So it evened out.
Yeah, brilliant. Oh, that's great advice, and you're still following it, so it clearly does work. So any aspiring producers certainly have got something to work from. The next one is from the members of a band called Adventure Club, who are on the Kidderminster record label MAS Records. So watch out for them. And so they're asking, Fraser, are there any specific playlists you would recommend new artists try and get their music onto for any industry awareness? Any playlists that you're aware of?
Playlist is a very open sort of category now. Radio playlists, local radio is always important, because that's the breeding ground through to, you know, local BBC radios, the breeding ground through to Radio 1, which is obviously huge. I think that getting music on Spotify, and if you can be, and the other streaming services, of course, and then be able to see who the editorial teams are on those playlists, and if you can send your music to them. I mean, the platforms are great in terms of the Spotify and Apple Music for artists. It's easy to get on there, and they're very artist friendly. I think they would be the radio and the streaming service playlist. And I think when you get into streaming services, it's a whole new world, but you can see the kind of playlists that you would be pitching for.
Yeah, and I guess
it's hard seeing the music without hearing the music, but you'd be able to spend some time researching it and say, actually, this one, and
yeah. But I think your advice about BBC local radio is really important, because I think people might forget that actually the BBC is still there championing new music, and the local radio has a part to play in that.
Yeah, and that's the first place. You know, I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, you're going to go straight onto Capital, or but I think that, you know, the institution that is the BBC really starts at local radio, and I think that once you can amass some plays on whatever, you know, BBC Berkshire, well, BBC Oxfordshire, I guess it would be the Kidderminster local radio station. It all gets fed into the big picture, and if you're really smashing it on local radio in Oxfordshire, that's going to get the attention, and you know, soon enough you'll be on Radio 1 and Radio 1 Big Weekend, and all the things that Radio 1 does to support new music is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. Okay, so last question is from a member of staff who teaches at Kidderminster and with Mass Records, and he's called Dominic Hatton, and he's asking, do you have any tips for specific places or websites where people might find great artists to collaborate with? You're a fantastic collaborator, but I guess you have artist managers or other artists or record labels who ring you up. But if for people starting out looking for collaborators, I don't know if that's something you're aware of.
You know, I am. Yeah, I think there are websites like Songlink, and there are a lot of websites out there that I am unaware of. But I think there's a whole community of songwriters out there. But I would say SoundCloud's good for to see new artists. I think that they're often, you know, if you can go through the social media sites and actually just DM someone, you'd be surprised at the responses that you may get as well. So if there was someone on there or an artist that you'd heard on Spotify and you went through to their Instagram and you DM them, probably a case of maybe DMing to people to get one response. But I mean, I always go through my direct messages on those things, and I know that a lot of artists do. So I wouldn't feel that it just has to be on a kind of songwriting forum type of platform. So I would try my luck.
Brilliant. Oh, look, thank you so much, for becoming a fellow.
Thanks for the questions. Thank you, Norton.
And thank you for answering those questions. And, you know, I wish you all great luck with whatever else you're doing. I know during lockdown you did the Radio 1 project, and you've got your own album. So, you know, constantly busy. And, you know, we're just hugely grateful to you for making some time for us today. And we look forward to finding some ways of collaborating with you as one of our new fellows in the future. So thank you.
Absolutely. I hope so. Thank you so much for that. And thanks so much for the award and the opportunities that you gave me back in the day, Norton.
Brilliant. Well, wonderful to see you, and I hope to see you soon. And bye-bye.